Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psych Reg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Bernie Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Richard, today we're going to talk a little bit more about social media again.
Here we go. I was going to say, here we go again.
Yeah.
This is a topic that just keeps coming up. It refuses to die. No, it just keeps popping up.
It does. And this was a article from, I think, your favorite magazine.
No. Who sent this? Who found this?
It's from Teen Vogue. You know you subscribe. You know you do.
I know about Teen Vogue.
But the title of this article is Social Media Anxiety Disorder Explained.
Right. And when I first saw this title, I thought, wait a minute, I don't remember that in the DSM-5.
I don't
and I thought,
remember it there either.
Oh, it's not in there.
Right.
Which got my attention immediately.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah. Well, we're revisiting social media again a little bit for two reasons. One, because of this article that just came out. We're recording this on Saturday, and it came out on Friday. So the day before. Yeah, the day before we were recording this. So this came out on September 8th.
Okay.
And so we are going to talk about it a little bit because of that, because it's recency, but also because we got this. We did a couple of podcasts last week on social media, and got some interesting reviews and statements and comments and feedback is probably the word that I should have used from the beginning about some of the content and some of the things that we talked about. And so we thought we would talk about it that way. Right,
because we did that whole week on social media and then interviewed a psychologist from England who is, if you have the opportunity, we would encourage you to watch that interview. Knowledgeable.
Dr. Aaron Ballack.
And so if you have the opportunity, take a look at that interview. It's rich. It's really full of good information from him. But yes, this social media business keeps coming up over and over and over again. This is sort of the latest installment.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you were making fun of Vogue.
I wasn't making fun of Vogue. No.
You're making fun of me.
Yeah.
Okay, that clarifies.
That's acceptable.
So you were, because this appears in Vogue of all places, and it was generated initially by is she a clothes designer?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That there was and I have to say, that clothes designers are talking about this is a good thing.
Right.
And the other thing that I like about it, I was listening to a podcast on Thursday, another podcast about how designers are addressing the issue of eating disorders in models and also the age that the major houses now have said they will employ no girls younger than 15 or 16, because what they do is they take these girls who are waif like 13 and 14 year olds, make them look like women for the runways when they're actually just waif little teenage girls. Okay. And so my compliments to the designers, because they're raising awareness of these issues. Yeah. And so this is the awareness of social, and it is from she's a designer, isn't she?
Hilary Taymor.
Yeah. Which is good. I'm glad that they're discussing this.
Yeah. So they refer to it in this as a mental health condition known as social media anxiety disorder, and again, this isn't a formal diagnosis.
Right.
This isn't something that's in the DSM that's going to, it's a, and I guess we should say that the DSM isn't it's the typical manual used to make diagnoses and things like that. But there are others, and there are other schools of thought as it relates to it. The American Psychiatric Association doesn't corner the market entirely as it relates to making mental health diagnoses. But this isn't a diagnosis that you're going to find on your insurance panel as something that's covered for treatment, probably.
Right. Yeah. It's not a recognized disorder.
Right. Right. And so, so we're going to talk a little bit about that because, well, I think we have mixed opinions as it relates to social media anxiety disorder.
We're going to be discussing two things, I think. One is what the effect of social media has on individuals. And it's not that social media anxiety disorder is the disorder. It is that it can produce other recognized disorders.
Right.
It could lead to depression or anxiety or some other recognized disorders.
Right.
In and of this is not a recognized disorder.
Right.
But it might produce a recognized disorder.
Right. And I think that the primary issue that I have with it is that, social media anxiety disorder, so we get anxious when we think about the need for social anxiety, and we become hyper-focused, and we become so affixed to it that we can't, distract or pull away from it. And it's sort of among the same vein as the addiction stuff that we talked about with things a few weeks ago. So, but my issue with it is that one's use of social media is a decision that we make. It's a choice that we make, and sure that we may feel compelled, we may feel a compulsion or even obsessively connected to it. But then that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an obsession or a compulsion or something like that. It's not. I think we have to be careful how we affix diagnoses to such specific things. If having a phobia of snakes, for example, is one thing, and in fact, when one has a phobia of snakes, yes, it's a disorder. Yes, it's in the DSM. Yes, it's something that's recognized. But the treatment for it, we don't typically give medication for that. We don't really typically, we don't even necessarily give treatment for that unless you live in an area where you're going to encounter snakes so frequently that we need to help desensitize you to it a little bit. So it's for the sense of a disorder, it doesn't really impact your life unless you're going to encounter snakes, for example. Social media anxiety disorder, the concern that I have with it, the issue that I have with it is that if we're thinking about, okay, so it's a disorder, what are we going to do about it? Well, the stimulus is the trigger. If the social media is the trigger, then treatment is, okay, so we need to remove the trigger.
The trigger, right.
And the people that tend to present with this challenge don't want to avoid the trigger.
That's correct. They choose to pursue the trigger.
Right. And not because, well, what are your thoughts? I'm going to hand the baton over to you.
Yeah, thanks. We would become, if we feel that we're not measuring up, if we feel that we're not being accepted. There was an article published in England recently that high school students who feel that they're not accepted have a higher rate of cutting behaviors.
Sure.
Okay. So we know that if you feel that you're not measuring up or you're not being accepted, that you can develop symptoms of anxiety and depression. Social media is simply another way of letting you know that. It's not the only way.
Right.
It's another way of letting you know that. More ubiquitous, yes. More common, yes. Present in our lives, yes. But you're right. You're volunteering for it.
Right.
If you have a bully in your life, you ignore the bully, and that solves the problem. Okay.
Right.
But we're not ignoring, as you say, we're not ignoring the trigger. We keep pursuing the trigger. We keep pursuing the thing that's making us sick.
Right. And the people that I talk to who present with some of the symptoms that they talk about in this article, we say, okay, well, so the approach that we need to take is this and this and this, and it's basically I can't do that.
Right.
And
When you say, I can't give up my phone, that's what you're saying. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And so last week we did a couple of podcasts, like we said, on social media. And one of them was last Thursday. We did the, can social media increase our conversations, help us talk about mental health issues? And we talked about the Lady Gaga Foundation and how they found that a significant portion of youngsters, young adults, use social media as a way to connect through mental health issues. And so I think that's fantastic. One of the comments that we got in the second social media podcast that we did on social media increasing connectedness or affecting or changing connectedness was that, a lot of people, especially those who are introverted, use social media as a way to experience emotions and to connect with other people and use it in a very healthy way. We also have talked a lot before about how social media is a way for people to be connected, and it is the media of communication, but for most youth today. With all that said, I think that we start muddying the water when we try to make things so specific. We try to make challenges and issues so specific that we talk about things like social media anxiety disorder. Well, if you're, as I said a moment ago, if you're so compelled to keep yourself exposed to a trigger that you know is going to cause you distress, you're probably doing that to relieve some other distress. There's your root. There's the mental health concern, if we're going to label it as that. If you're so, if you're insecure, if you're so anxious that you have to check it to see what people are talking about and what's going on and how these other people are living, that's the issue that we need to address. Not a social media anxiety disorder, but the thing that keeps you driven to monitor and expose yourself to a trigger that we know causes you problems.
Yeah, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a typical 13 to 18-year-old boy or girl, doesn't matter. I'm thinking of a girl because of my daughters. What is it like to be, do they view being connected the way we view being connected? And I'm not sure that they do. I think they feel that they have to be. I don't have to be connected all the time.
Right.
My daughter appears to have a need to be connected. Does that change it? That they need to be connected?
Well, but again, I think that from the perspective that I'm coming from, why is there a need? Why is that need there?
That's the world that they live in. That's the world. That is how their world has evolved.
So what I would ask then is, what is the impression or what is the expectation that would happen that you would experience if you're not connected? And they would say, well, I would feel left out. I would feel as though people didn't, notice me as much. I would feel as though there would be things going on that I didn't know about. Okay, so there's your anxiety. That's the root of the anxiety there. The fear of missing out, maybe the fear of the insecurity, the low self-esteem, or whatever it is. That's the root of the problem. Dealing with your ability to cope with social media, that's fantastic. We can do desensitization or something like that to help with that. But it's not going to resolve the root of the issue that you have whether it's some personal self-image issue or some relational issues that's sort of at the root that's driving that.
But I don't think they would acknowledge that.
Right. I don't think that they would either.
Okay.
No, I think that it's so ingrained in their culture that it's just seen as a natural thing, and that's why I think therapy would be so important in this kind of situation, because you have to work through that in a therapeutic process to increase that insight and that understanding.
And as we said, we did a talk about boys, the demise of boys.
Right.
And one of the things that was mentioned there, boys spend too much time online.
Right.
And so one of the recommendations is that parents need to control how much time their boys are spending online, to force them to do. We need to do the same thing here with if we're talking about girls.
Right.
And this article it was in Teen Vogue. That we need to set the same kind of limits on girls. That we need to show them that they will survive and they'll do just fine even if they're not connected constantly every day.
Right. Well, I think that one of the points, the comment that we got on one of the podcasts last week on YouTube was from the developmental enthusiast, Dr. Sarah Langworthy, who we've interviewed before. And she made a fantastic point that a lot of people use social media as a way to be connected to other people.
That's right.
And I think that is great. And so to me, it's sort of like video games in other forms of technology. It's not so much how much you use it, it's the reasons that you're using it and what you're missing out because of using it. What I worry about in light of what you were just saying is that it's not that we have to necessarily limit a girl's or a boy's use of social media. What we have to do is we have to make sure that they're healthy and stable, whether they use it or not.
Right. That's
And that, if you have somebody who's unhealthy or using it for unhealthy reasons, we have to deal with that.
Right.
If they're using it, if they interact well with other people and they are self-confident and they have, no major issues with any of those things,
and they're doing everything else.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, because if you have a good student who's participating in athletics, is active in school, is active in the other organizations, is it really having a negative effect?
Right.
This child is really doing everything we're asking her to do.
Right. And I think parents need to understand, and this is what I worry about with articles like this, and not that it's poorly written or that it's a bad idea to even be thinking about, but what I worry about is that parents or people will see that and they'll say, oh, well, then I need to take that away from them.
Right.
And that's not the remedy.
That's not the solution.
The remedy is we got to get to the root of the problem.
Right.
We got to figure out what's really going on, because I would put money on, you could take the social media away from them, force it away from them.
Right.
They're still going to have problems.
Still going to have the same problem.
They're still going to have issues.
And I think we get into that. These are complicated issues, and some students can, some youngsters can, and some can't handle this medium.
Right.
Just like some can handle peer criticism, and some cannot handle peer. It doesn't matter what the source of the criticism is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to be aware of.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's why these kinds of topics, these kinds of the idea of pathologizing everything to the minutia,
right,
worry me, because we're missing the forest for the trees.
That's right. It's not the medium. It's not the video game. It's not the cell. There's something else that you need to be aware of.
Right.
So it's more complicated.
Right.
So just by taking away the cell phone doesn't solve the probably isn't going to solve the problem that you really need to solve.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Because that problem is still going to be there, because that's at the root of the issues.
That's right.
It's not the social media. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's that.
But there is one nice little point in this article that she makes, and that is that be very careful. But again, this is a teaching lesson. We need to teach our youngsters, and it's a very hard thing to teach because the current is certainly flowing in a different direction, is that these are unfair comparisons. When you're comparing yourself, your real self, and we talked about this with Aaron in that interview. When you're comparing your real self with an idealized self of another, you're always going to come up short.
Right.
Because you have a whole person with the good and bad features, whereas the person online, my online persona, has been changed and cleaned up.
Yeah.
And so that's something, but that's a teaching. That's a process that we have to teach. You don't destroy the medium because that exists.
Right. Yeah. Social media isn't going anywhere, and if anything, it's going to continue to expand.
It's going to increase.
So instead of falling into the same pattern that we have tried to do with video games and music and television and all that other stuff. That instead of fighting the losing battle of saying, well, this is what the problem is, let's look at what the real problem is, and really fix our focus on that and address that.
And that's what we have to do with everything. Cars are dangerous, right?
Yeah.
They're inherent, but we still use them.
Right.
And we use them wisely, but we use them.
Yeah.
Same
Absolutely.
with this.
Absolutely. So, all right, that wasn't too bad. So that's it for today.
You did a Muhammad Ali approach to that one. Okay, I like that.
See,
facile.
What did you call me?
No.
All right, that's it for today. So until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, don't forget to be afraid.